Good afternoon. Welcome. Kent Bain with 9 Business Group and Elevate Chat. This afternoon, we get the pleasure to speak with Dennis. Dennis, welcome to Elevate Chat, and please introduce yourself and your company and what makes you guys awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Kent. I appreciate it. My name is Dennis Conbites. I'm the CEO of EZ Robot, and we have the world's best educational robotics platform. Simple enough that we can use it with students as young as 10 years old and be teaching them advanced robotics, speech recognition, vision tracking, utilizing Microsoft's AI. So some high-end stuff we can do with kids as young as 4th grade. And at the high end, we have people using our platform to make life-sized humanoid robots, drink dispensing robots, robotic submarines, snow shoveling robots. I was talking with a client today out of the US that was using the platform to make spindles on a lathe. So lots of different possibilities on what people can do with the platform. So it's a great product for education. It's a great product for the real world.
So what are you in both businesses then, in the education space as well as teaching people how to build robots for the workplace, or are you guys in the robot manufacturing space to help businesses?
So the company was originally started about 10 or 11 years ago, and it was for DIY roboticists. The platform, again, the software is super powerful. It uses Arc Synthium software, developed in Calgary, and it really empowers people that don't have robotics training or programming training to build robots that can do a wide range of functions, or robotic applications that can do a wide range of functions. So that was kind of the genesis of the company initially. And it does a great job with that. We have people using, again, the platform for a lot of different purposes. But one of the things that we started to do about 4 or 5 years ago was pivot towards the educational space, because we understand the impact that robotics and AI is going to have on the workplace, which is so much larger than people understand. People think of robotics and artificial intelligence as industries, and they are, but what is not really being understood right now is these two technologies are going to lay across all industries, much like computers do, right? So imagine if you didn't have computer literacy, what would your employment opportunities be? And the field of view shrinks considerably. And the same is true with robotics and AI. If you understand these things, you can apply those technologies to all industries, and they're going to totally redefine the workplace and society over the next decade. So we believe it's important that everybody have literacy in these subjects. And I think it's critically important. So we started pivoting towards education to make sure that we were trying to get as many of our youth able to understand this. And then there's an interesting intersection that happens. Right now, we're working on literacy within education, but there's proficiency and mastery that need to be developed as well for some students. Not everybody needs proficiency or mastery. We don't need 8 billion roboticists or high-level programmers, but we need everybody to have this literacy. And then we start building the proficiency and mastery. So the EZ Robot platform, again, it's super powerful. This is our little controller here. You can use it to do a wide range of things. And so for us, there's a real nice intersection coming where the education market and the industrial market, or the do-it-yourself roboticist market, those two things are going to start to merge together as we introduce new sensors like LiDAR, infrared, ultrasonic. We've already got those, accelerometer, gyroscopes, CO2 sensors, light sensors, heat sensors. We can do all of these things. And so again, people can make a wide range of things. And what's happening with our DIY community is very similar to the type of projects that our educational community will be working on over the next couple or 3 years, once their students start to work through the process of learning about robotics. So it really fuses both together.
So who's ultimately your ideal client then? Who's the perfect referral, perfect client for you?
Man, there's so much need for this. I can't pin it down to a perfect client. I guess, universities are great clients for us, right? Because they're utilizing the full functionality of what we can do, or at least they have the potential to utilize that. But there's nothing that warms my heart more than going into a school and teaching robotics and having a 4th or 5th grade girl come up and say, I used to be afraid of robots and I'm not anymore. So I love the educational space as well. The big thing is we're teaching within the education space, we're teaching robotics, we're teaching coding. But Kent, the largest thing that we do is we're changing the way people perceive themselves. Most people are afraid of robotics and coding in terms of education, right at the high school level. And I've spoken with 20,000 educators in the last 9 years. So these stats are really solid. At the high school level, the number of students interested in learning robotics is about 3% of boys and 0.3% of girls. So to put some meat on those stats, in a school with 2,000 students, usually there's about 30 boys and 3 girls in the robotics program or club. And when we understand that robotics, AI, and automation is going to eliminate 20 to 47% of jobs over the next decade, and we're talking about 30 to 65 million people across the USA and Canada, and we understand that this technology is going to impact all industries. 35 students or 33 students out of 2,000 getting literacy in this area, and 1,967 not getting literacy in this area is nothing short of a crisis. And so this is really where I got into it. And at the same time, adults are also afraid of this technology, right? Like most adults, if I say, hey, we do robotics, they're going to say, wow, I can't do that. That's beyond me. The truth is most people can with the platform that we have. The hardware is very easy to use. The software is incredibly easy to use. So anybody can build robotic applications now. People just have to be open-minded and give themselves a chance. I've trained hundreds of teachers personally on how to teach robotics. I would say 90 to 95% of those had zero robotics or coding experience prior to us starting. So everybody can learn this. And once you understand the technology, you can apply it to your business. It doesn't matter if that's retail, agriculture, manufacturing, hospitality, transportation. These 2 technologies are going to change them all.
So this is where I'm going to take the conversation slightly different. How do we help you scale? Like when you think about scaling your business, you're looking at it from a quote unquote, I can change the world. We can change the world. We can change Canada. We can at the very least change how Alberta educates young people. But there's only one of you. So what challenge do you face and how do we help you reach more people more often, faster? Is that kind of the challenge you're facing as well? Or is that just me looking at it going, how do we help?
I would say that is a challenge. Probably the largest challenge we face, which is, the truth is it's going to be a self-correcting challenge. But the biggest challenge we face is that people generally don't understand the scope of impact and how it's already happening around us, and they don't understand the speed with which and the depth it's gonna occur. So as these changes continue to revolutionize the workplace, more and more people are going to understand this. More educators will understand this. Thus far for us, a lot of the challenge has been helping educators understand that it's not good enough to give a few of your students this literacy. All of your kids need it. So that's why I've talked to 20,000 educators. I fly around the world speaking at education conferences, doing keynotes and breakout sessions, and that level of knowledge is improving. So that's going to help us scale. The biggest thing for us right now is, the company's been around for a decade. It's a robust product. It's refined. We've got an incredible product, good curriculum, a good marketing strategy, good messaging. When we talk to educators about what's coming, they see a definite need for our product. It's just that we have to talk to more educators. So what we are doing as a company is our go-to-market strategy is through resellers. And we like to use resellers because it allows us to expand globally. And we don't know who the educators of note or importance are in Poland, but our Polish reseller who works with educators every day does. We don't know who they are in the UAE or in Florida or in South Carolina, but we've got partners around the world that do. And so what we're doing right now is we have about 25 resellers. I want to grow that network to over 100 over the next few years. And that will have a dramatic impact on sales and operations and stuff. And the other big thing for us is when people see the platform in person, they understand why everybody wants to learn robotics this way, right? And so for us going to education conferences, and this is another value of having the educational resellers from around the world, is because they can demonstrate the product locally, right? Everybody says they have a great product. Everybody says they have high levels of engagement. Our high level of engagement is a factor of 10 higher than the other people, right? So, but when people see it with their own eyes, they see the software, they understand it, then they get it. And it's funny, I've demonstrated and taught robotics to more than 18,000 students from around the world, across the USA, across Canada, down into New Zealand, Australia, the Middle East, the UK. And the strategies we have work everywhere. But the reason I've demonstrated to so many people is, imagine you're a principal of a school and you're focused and you're like, we need to get more kids engaged in this technology. I know it's coming. I'm reading articles about it. How can we get more people engaged? And you're trying your best with other products and you're still hitting, and other products and strategies. It's not just about the technology, but you're getting 3% of your kids. And then along comes Dennis and he says, I can increase that number to 25 to 45% in a single day. You can understand that there would be some skepticism about that.
Sure.
And so I demonstrate the robots. And when I do that, ultimately what we typically see or hear is people go, well, of course, everybody wants to learn robotics like that. Right. So like when you see what the robots can do, it's so obvious why children would be excited about learning it the way that we're teaching it. But so for us to scale, what we are actually doing right now is we are raising some capital to allow us to multiply our marketing and business development efforts. We've got a great strategy, great messaging. COVID was very, very challenging for us, as you can imagine, with educators being our key market. Schools went virtual and they certainly weren't interested in a hands-on product that people would be touching and sharing, right? And so we're seeing things looking really great through 2019 and into early 2020. We were poised for massive growth, and then COVID shut us down for about 18 months. Things started to rebound for us in the fall of 2021. Early 2022 was looking pretty good for us. And so now we are, we're well poised to go out there and, have explosive growth. So what we're actually doing right now, Kent, is a crowdfunding raise where virtually anybody can invest in the company and become, a full investor in Easy Robot for as little as $1,000. And that's neat for us because we've got a great community. We've got 27,000 users in 170 countries from around the world. People that use our product love it. And so what we're doing with this is we're giving the general public and our users and our community and our supporters the opportunity to become an owner in the company. And it's a new fundraising exemption where we're still a private company, but normally to invest in a private company, you have to be a close personal contact of the founders of the company, like, a brother or a sister or a best friend type of close, or you have to have a good amount of wealth and be an accredited investor. So, normally average, people from average income families and stuff don't get an opportunity to invest in something like this, but the market growth is forecast for 20% a year. And we think that our growth is going to be massively faster than this. So it's exciting for us as well, because this gives us the opportunity to have, to capitalize the company and to go out and do the good that we know that we can do. It also gives us the ability to share in that prosperity with our community and with regular folk. And that's just it's a really fun scenario that we're in right now.
Good for you. So when you talk about the product, I got two questions. I got a lot of questions. I'm going to try and keep it to a minimum. When you talk about the product and easy to use, walk me through how this guy and how your product, so I'm just a business coach got a couple employees, I don't build anything, but tell me how I would interface and what I would look at as a client for you. Would I subscribe and learn things as a learning platform to make robotics, or well, how would it apply to me as just Joe Q Public?
Okay, so there's that's such a multifaceted answer. Okay, I'll give a great example of what the transition is coming, like that robotics and AI is going to bring. And I'm going to use a job that people would intrinsically think was completely not robotics based. I'm going to go to the farthest other end of the spectrum I can. So I was doing a keynote presentation about 7 years ago at a conference in New York called Robo Universe. Gave my presentation. Over the next 2 days at this conference, I met 20 to 25 people from the fashion industry. Now that surprised me because in my estimation, fashion is at this end of the spectrum, robotics is over here, right? You know, if I think, okay, what skills do you need to be a fashion designer? I would say good color theory, ability to sew, ability to draw, creative, obviously, risk taker, resilient, a lot of soft skills over here in a fashion designer. Over here in a roboticist, engineering minded, computational thinking, programming, physics, math, a lot of, you know, hard skills, so to speak. But now they go like this. And, you know, it's interesting. I didn't, when I started meeting people from, you know, the fashion industry, the first couple I thought must have a personal interest in robotics because I didn't see any parallel. But you meet 3 or 4 people in an hour, you start saying, well, wait a second, why are there so many of you here? So I started asking them, you know, why are you, you know, you're the 4th person I met in an hour, why are there so many people from fashion at this robotics conference? And what they all told me was, if you want to get a job in fashion, 2 of the most important skills are 3D printing and robotics. Right. And so like now what we see is these two industries that are so far apart are coming together like this. And it took me a little bit of time, but I thought about this, and here's really what it comes down to, Kent. This is why this is true. Imagine this circle represents all the fashion that's ever been created in the history of man. It's all inside this circle. If you add 3D printing and robotics, what you can create is greater. With 3D printing, you can create new designs that couldn't be created any other way. With robotics and artificial intelligence, you can create smart clothing that responds to light or sound or temperature. The wearer's own biorhythms. We start seeing things like smart watches, smart shoes, smart socks. So you can create greater opportunities. Now, if you own a fashion design company and you're hiring 1 new person, do you want the person that gives you this potential or this potential? And the answer is, you know, the greater potential. And I've asked that question of 20,000 educators and probably another 1,000 non-educational adults. Everybody picks the bigger circle. It's really simple. But there's an important thing that we have to understand. Once these people are available, you know, then the people that don't have this knowledge have a hard time finding a job. And so then when we look at what's happening in our schools and we look at the levels of enrollment, we see there's a huge problem, right? So even in a scenario, you know, like you've got there, Kent, where you're helping people grow their business, you're providing guidance and whatnot. If you understand robotics and AI, I can tell you with a high level of confidence that most of your clients don't. But they could be implementing robotics and AI, and they need to understand it, because if they don't, their competition will eventually, right? And the, you know, without getting into super specifics, the advantages that are there already, if you understand this, if you're a business manager, are tremendous. If you start looking at artificial intelligence and what it already can do, the impact is huge. And this isn't just about low skill workers that are working at the McDonald's as a chef, or, you know, working in a coffee shop. This isn't just about those types, you know, of people. It's not just about blue collar labor. If you're an accountant and AI comes out and it makes accounting 30% easier, then your billings are going down by 30% if you're independent. Or if you're in a company that's got 10 accountants and it's 30% easier, that company is going to right size down to 7 accountants, right? Things like AI is changing the legal profession. So there are now people going through law school, and when it's time for them to go article or become a junior lawyer in a firm, the AI can do a lot of the background work that junior lawyers used to do. So the number of junior lawyers needed is shrinking. This is not just about manufacturing. That's what a lot of people view, but this is going to hit all industries. And so really, I would strongly encourage everybody that hears this message, start investigating AI and robotics and what it's doing within your industry, because it's going to impact your company and it's going to potentially impact your job. The World Economic Forum is forecasting 1 billion people will need retraining by 2030. It's 8 years from now. 1 billion people. Like this is not a small transition. And what I love about working locally and in Alberta and helping people here understand this, if we understand this transition early, then we prosper from being able to put the right things into place more quickly.
Fascinating. So can you give us a couple other examples? And that was kind of that other question I alluded to before, is some other examples of industries that we wouldn't expect to be impacted. I love the analogy with accounting, bookkeeping, because a lot of the stuff they're just scanning in, they're loading to the cloud. It's the bookkeeping has definitely been reduced by it. But what are some other industries that are kind of more typical that we would see every day, but not think robotics applies? Like, will they be able to climb a roof and put shingles on? Will they be able to do framing one day? Or what are some other weird industries that we just haven't even thought of that is now approaching? Because I'm with you. I think once people start setting the standard, even if it's not in our industry, I think often of Amazon. Their ability to deliver something within a day or 24 hours has changed the delivery standard for anybody not in their industry. I was working with a window and door company a couple of years ago, and we were talking about that because Amazon's making it so easy to do it for yourself. It does create a halo effect where now a typical sales call for a window and door company shows up. Generally there's a presentation, you measure the windows, all that fun stuff. Well, at some point, somebody's going to go, here's how you measure your own windows, place your order. So even though that instant thing isn't in his industry, it's happening. So therefore it will come to his industry at one point. So I think robotics probably in that same space. But what would be some other examples that you just wouldn't even think about that robotics would be creeping into our world and kind of surprising us?
Okay, well, there's a great one, and you were just talking about construction. You can 3D print buildings now, right? Which is, brings up the potential to that can redefine what construction looks like. Could you build robots that could frame a house? We're not there yet, but I believe that something like that is coming for sure. That would be a relatively repeatable task. Where you would get into a little bit more complex is when you get variation, right? So a great example is technology will be able to more easily, for the sake of argument, plumb a new house where what the parameters are. It's more easy for automation to do that than it is for automation to go into an existing house and fix an issue and retrofit that house or adjust things.
Yep.
Or you're working with a wider range of unknown variables, right? So in scenarios like those types of industries, being involved from a scenario where there's a lot of variables makes it easier. But even in things like real estate, if we're both realtors and you're trying to land a deal and I'm trying to land a deal and I've got video that shows what my aerial drone is doing, and I'm going to do an aerial of the house to show how it fits into the community and whatnot, that's advantageous. I just had my shingles replaced on a roof, and one of the things I thought was really awesome was they went up and took aerials with a drone before, during, and after. Right now, a drone isn't critical to replacing the shingles, but I will recommend this company because I really appreciated seeing the before, during, and after pictures. And it gives me a real strong, image of what is happening. The other benefit is you can fire a drone, fly a drone around a neighborhood, and it could, potentially be hooked up with Google Maps or something along that line. And it could go like, this house needs a roof, this house needs a roof, this house needs a roof, this house needs a roof. And then you could plug that in with other technology and recognize, okay, is this a good community to go after, and go after those particular houses as opposed to blanketing everybody. Because right now in my mail, I've got new shingles on my house. I might get a promo for roofing. Well, I don't need that. So that is lost advertising, right? I'm not going to pretend to understand the flyer business, but there's so many opportunities like that.
Yep.
And understanding search engine optimization and having strong digital literacy, also very critical, right? So we've got a good understanding of that. And as an example, our website, if you were to type in the word robot, our website is going to come in the top 4 out of 2.4 billion search results. Does that give us an advantage? It does. We're the highest ranked robotics company for the word robot in the world today. And that leads to 250,000 impressions a month. And that's going to be, next year that'll be worth 500,000 impressions a month. Now, does that tangibly move the needle forward? That's not our direct business, but it helps if you understand these things. It gives you a bit of an advantage. And there's AI that can assist with marketing and stuff out there that could help everybody's company, right? So there's so many changes that are happening today. And, if you understand those things, you're going to be advantaged. And a great example of this to me is, I think of the, university education for people that are in business programs. Well, imagine, let's go back to the circles I did earlier. Here's the business manager that doesn't understand robotics and AI. Here's the one that does. Knowing the changes that are coming, which of those two are you hiring? You're hiring the one that gets it, because they can bring more benefit. And now here's the interesting thing. If universities aren't teaching about this, you need to take the time and energy to go online, find the information yourself. There's, YouTube is a great place to learn about all of this stuff and understand what AI is. There's actually a video out there that's pretty cool. If people went onto YouTube and typed AI plays hide and seek, there's a video that will show how AI generally can function and learn. And it's a fun video to watch, and it really gives a good understanding. And I use that video when we teach teach courses for adults on understanding robotics and AI. We do a 2-day course that is an introduction to this. And we've had engineers in there, we've had lawyers, and there's people that are very technically minded that are going, okay, I don't understand this. And implementing AI and robotics isn't necessarily super easy for a lot of businesses, but it is super easy for some. And it's just important to understand where your particular business fits on that scale.
Fascinating. What is the biggest frustration with your current business? Kind of where you're at now?
Government policy.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But specifically with regards to COVID, I mean, it's I don't know where things are headed, right? The travel restrictions that were in place for a long time, obviously the changes to the education space, a lack of consistency in policy, and a lack of communication, that makes it more difficult for us to plan ahead, right? It's like, oh, okay, we're closing schools. Well, what thresholds do you need to reach before you reopen schools so that we can start to plan for that? Gotcha. And like those types of things. And I believe that COVID should be mostly behind us, but I just don't know that the government believes that COVID is mostly behind us. So it creates a bit of uncertainty. The world is a big place, and we are a global company, so we're able to ride through that stuff pretty well. But that's probably the biggest frustration I have. and the biggest joy I have is helping people understand what's coming and being able to prepare and take care of themselves and inspiring children. That's just the energy that comes off children when they're doing robotics is off the charts.
I can only imagine. Out of curiosity, how have you, and you don't have to answer it, it's a complete curiosity question. Why did you decide on the business model that you have with resellers versus, say, franchising?
Really, it comes down to the connections that people have. So the education space is largely, like, the sales are largely come based upon trust. And if we franchise a business into South Dakota and they're going to go out, then they start making connections with educators, but they have to be around for a couple of years before the educators will trust them enough to buy from them, potentially. Like, some people see the robots and they're like, yeah, I have to have it. But it takes time to build up that network. And so for us, when we go to resellers, they've already got those networks. Sometimes for schools and school districts, they've got a vendor list that they can buy from.
Okay.
If they franchise, then that person has to get themselves on those vendor lists. And again, that can be a slow process.
Interesting. Okay. What one piece of advice would you share about growing and scaling a business?
I would say it's important to be resilient and put on sustained pressure while and these two things are going to sound like they contradict each other. At the same point in time, having a high level of intellectual honesty with yourself. Is this working? And sometimes that answer is going to be no, and sometimes that answer is going to be yes. And sometimes you're going to get small indicators that are say it's going to work, right? So like, my example of us ranking really well on Google, we know that produces a small amount of sales, or some sales for us today. We know that amount of sales will increase annually, so that's worth putting some energy on, right? Just based on where the market is going and stuff, we know that if we can hold that ranking, that's good. But there's some things that I've done in other businesses in the past that you're like, this is going to work, and you put money into it, and they're like, how come this isn't flipping into sales? It worked so great on the drawing board table. Yep. Right? We're in a good position with Easy Robot because the company's been around for 10 years, so we've got this process now nailed. But as a young startup, that's a really important thing, is to have that intellectual honesty with yourself and not to overreact, because there's going to be days when you're euphoric, and there's going to be days when you want to curl up into the fetal position on the couch and just lay there, right? And everybody I know who started a business goes through that roller coaster, and you need to try to maintain balance in your thoughts, where when you're euphoric, it's probably not going to be euphoria from that day forward. Take the euphoria, it's awesome. Take the wins, they're great, celebrate them. But when you're having challenges and stuff, don't get too reactionary, don't get too down, because if you just keep, and this is the importance of the consistent effort, just keep planting seeds. Sometimes those seeds take a day to sprout, and sometimes those seeds take 4 years. Like I in the education space, went to some conferences, and then I'll hear back from people that we met at that conference 4 years later, and they'll say, I've had your business card on my desk for 4 years, and we are finally able to do something with it, right? So you just have to keep planting seeds and planting relationships. And not every business is a relationship business, but it's a huge percentage of them, I think, probably are. And
says the guy who's building robots for a living.
But we're doing that to help people understand it, right? It's interesting as well, because there is a dichotomy there as well. But what we recognize is these changes are coming. This is a really great way to prepare people for those changes. And there's nothing that anybody is going to do to stop those changes, because they are economically massively valuable for the companies, right? And so the changes are coming. All we can do is make our best efforts to get ready for it. But people, I would say this, a relationship is more important than a sale in most cases. I mean, when you're a startup and you're starving, sales really important, but having that integrity to build strong relationships, that's the pathway to sustained success.
Fantastic. One last question, my favorite. Always the best for last. What do you want to be known for? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you've achieved everything you've desired with easy robots. You're sitting comfortably on a beach. When you look back over the progression of the company, global penetration, whatever it is, what do you want to be known for?
Opening people's minds and opportunities, helping people, equipping people to make great decisions for themselves. You know, I mean, we go into schools and I'll talk to 60 kids or 100 or 500 kids, and we'll have a number that we know we've made a huge difference for. Like I said, like, you know, we'll hear from a girl, I used to be afraid of robotics and I'm not afraid anymore. For that girl, that 1 hour presentation has completely changed their future, because her future is going to involve robotics, whether or not she's afraid of them. And so, you know, the big thing for us is really, I guess I'd love to be known for inspiring people and helping open their field of opportunity for the future.
How many people do you think you can impact?
Tens of millions.
Tens of millions?
Tens of millions, easily, yeah, and you know, maybe hundreds of millions. It's a you know, I've spoken with 20,000 educators already. I've demonstrated and taught robotics to 18,000 children personally.
Yep.
And so, and I did a day of robotics inspiration where I started at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. in New Zealand, did a webinar. This was during COVID. We tried to still reach people, do the best we can under those circumstances. So we did a webinar for New Zealand. Then, you know, a couple hours later, we did one for Australia and the people that are in that time zone, and then on Eastern Australia, then Western Australia, and we move across India and stuff like that. So I did 24 hours of webinars. About every 2 hours, I did one to try to get as many kids as possible. We were able to reach 24,000 children in a day with that. From around the world, lots of kids from Africa and places that don't get exposure to this. So awesome. So we can inspire a lot of people that way. But I love the multiplier impact when I talk to an educator and I help them understand what's coming, and I help them understand the best way to inspire children about this. Then how many children have those educators gone out and impacted? And so, you know, if we've hit 20,000 educators, the impact from that is probably in the hundreds of thousands already. And we're just getting started.
Do you have a number? And I guess, because I look at it, most clients, most business people don't think in numbers like that. So I want to try and dig it out of you. Where we've gone past the 30 minutes. So bear with me. Do you track it? Do you actually have that number written down? You say, I want, you know, we talk in business, the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, all those fun things. But do you legit have a number that you want to impact and change 500 million lives?
You know, I don't have a number in my head, because my number is everybody. You know, with the changes that are coming, everybody needs this literacy. Now, you know, from a business perspective, would I love to see easy robot in every school? Yeah, that would be awesome. But, you know, that'd be really awesome. But that's not the larger picture, you know, most important thing. The most important thing is that people have an understanding of what is coming and develop the self-confidence to be able to prepare themselves. Right? There's a lot of attention on emotional learning right now and people's mental health. And let's go back to my stats about the high schools, where 97% of kids are not interested in learning robotics. They think it's gross, it's intimidating, they don't like it. Now imagine that, you know, you've got your engineering-minded kids, and over here you've got your creative kids that hate engineering. Mm-hmm. Think of what happens every time there's a news story about climate change and we're wrecking the world and there's no solution, or what's going to happen every time there's a story about robots are coming, they're going to take your job, or AI. Even hearing what I'm talking about, I'm hopeful about the future, but I know that the statistics are brutal and intimidating, and this information shrinks people. So imagine, going back to our high school scenario, you're on the creative side of the curve and you don't like engineering, and you start hearing every day on the news, climate's bad, the environment's bad, robots are taking jobs. We just start shrinking people. And if, the one thing that we know that we can do is we cause people to flourish, right? We teach robotics, we teach coding, but the biggest thing we do is we change how people perceive themselves and their futures. There is no cap on the importance of that. So I've never thought about, I'd like to reach 100 million or 500 million people. I want everybody to flourish. And so I will relentlessly pursue this until we reach as many people as possible.
Fantastic. So I said one more question, but I got to know. So I got a 15-year-old son at home.
Yeah.
Short of getting into his school system, do you have a product or service that works for a 15-year-old who wants to theoretically learn more? Is that where you have a service offering, or is it really strictly for business owners and schools, or is it a individual type basis as well?
Yeah, so the company was originally created for the do-it-yourself market. So we've got great resources for people that might be interested in learning this at home and on their own, right? So this robot here, this is the one I always use when I'm trying to inspire people to learn robotics, because it outperforms everything else by a huge amount. The price point on this guy is $600 US, which can sound expensive until you understand the impact and benefit. And then you think about how much it's going to cost to put your children through university. And if they're only going to graduate with enough skills to get the jobs that are disappearing, then all of a sudden, $600 US doesn't sound like so much. But we've got a range of different products. We've also got something that is, it's called our developer kit, that has a collection of servos, controller, camera, ultrasonic distance sensor. This allows people to make their own robots and build their own robotic applications. Yeah, over the next couple of years, we'll have 100 sensors coming out. So people, if you're sitting at home and you're like, I wonder if I could create something that could plant flowers for me, or pick weeds, or whatever might be in your head or your heart, then we've got components to help make that happen. And on our website, we've got about 120 free tutorials. Some of those tutorials are very basic. Here's how to build your robot. Some of those tutorials are very complex. Here's how to do artificial intelligence with your robot, or how to, do visual tracking with your robot, or use a Wii remote, or virtual reality glasses. So you see what the robot sees. You move your head, the robot moves its head. You can do everything with the platform. So, and we've got tutorials that are, on a broad range of topics. So I mean, virtually anybody could be learning this on their own if they want to take the time to do so. And it's, the truth is, it's fun. When you see the robot respond to the stuff that, that you've programmed in, it's really exciting. So I'll just really quickly here, I'll just show you one thing. This is the way I hook students at the school, or in schools. I'll talk to them for 5 minutes about the future, why robotics education is so awesome, and it's going to help them have better lives and make a bigger impact. And then I'll tell them I could talk, forever, which you can clearly see. But I know a lot about robotics, and I'm passionate about it. But I always say, I can talk or I can show you the robot, and everybody wants to see the robot. So I let them know this guy's name is JD, and then I say, JD, show me how strong you are. And when people see the robot respond to my voice, all of a sudden that's pretty magical. And I programmed that in 20 minutes, and I'm not a programmer. JD, can you sing happy birthday?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear human. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Now, that was programmed by an 8-year-old. That's her voice coming out of the robot, right? So I use this robot to get everybody excited about it. And then, that's kind of the beginning of the education. Then we get into things like the developer kit, and people are building robots from scratch, all the way up to things like life-size humanoid robots. Right. So there's a full range of education that people can, kind of learn and put themselves through.
Excellent. You've been an absolutely great guest. We've gone well past the 30-minute mark, but so much information there to digest. So any parting comments, or where would you like people to, after watching the video, go to learn more about you guys?
Well, if people are interested in learning about the company, they can go to ez-robot.com or ez-robot.com here in Canada. If people are interested in investing, they can check us out on Equivesto, which is a crowdfunding website. So people that, if they're curious and they want to put some money in, we're happy to talk to them. The opportunity, I think, is spectacular. Or people can just reach out to me through our website. I'm happy to have conversations. We do presentations for free in school and stuff all the time. So if educators happen to be hearing this, we're happy to come in. We try to make as much of a difference as we can. So probably the best place I would send people is just to our website, and they can reach us through there, ez-robot.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kent. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.